Hiruzen, as a leader, was never my favorite Kage. Maybe I tend to be a bit rough on him. Well, no, he sort of deserves the criticism. His failure to win a war that they were likely going to win? Sorta disgraceful. So many Shinobi lost, no gain. Even as a person, I sometimes wonder. His failure to protect Naruto? I mean, what am I supposed to say about that? He tried? Better luck next time? Bro just sent a 4-year-old to live by himself in an apartment and merely told people don't talk about him and assume that that would protect him? Was he incompetent, stupid, or just lazy and uncaring? I don't know, but I need to get off this train before I make an entire video about it. Wait, maybe that's exactly what I should do.
Welcome to the Amagi! Before we begin, we publish a new video every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Also, we just released some brand new merch. If you'd like to show your support for the channel even further while at the same time repping stylish clothing, be sure to check that out as well. The store is linked below. YouTube's been unsubscribing users from channels lately, so if you're a fan of us, please do us a favor and double check to see if you're still subscribed. It only takes a second, and it helps us a ton here at Amagi. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video.
If I look for the silver lining in Hiruzen's term as Hokage, what I would say is that he was at the very least self-aware of his shortcomings. This didn't change how he acted, but he at least knew that he sucked lemons. Now, originally, the plan for this video was to simply change things and see what sort of world would come about if Hiruzen had killed Orochimaru, and don't you worry, this is still gonna happen. But I do wish to dive just a little bit deeper into this and add in a few other aspects to his failed career and see what happens. Hiruzen's greatest achievement is that he didn't sink the boat. I suppose it's fair to acknowledge that he did at least keep things going, which was likely his intended goal. Hiruzen seems to lack confidence in his role, which likely stems from him feeling unworthy to hold it. As such, he holds Konoha like a glass baby in his arms that he's afraid might shatter if he moves around too much. His careful nature and leading style completely slaughters his ambition. If Hiruzen had just a little more drive in him, he could have easily gone down as the greatest Hokage in the history of the Hidden Leaf. Perhaps not the strongest, but the most intelligent and the wisest. He certainly had time enough to do it. He was the longest serving Kage, serving longer than his two predecessors and his successor. We might even be able to fit in Kakashi's term as well, and definitely Tsunade's. He had all the time in the world to do something, but he decided it best to play mother hen and sit on the egg until it hatched all on its own. So what if Hiruzen didn't? What if he took initiative? What if he handled the Uchiha better? What if he didn't give Danzo as much power as he did? What if he didn't just let Naruto go? And what if he killed Orochimaru when he had the chance? Let's take a look and see. Silence. Silence was the only thing that could be heard. A faint ringing in the ears, the brain trying to process sound that did not exist. The sound of one's own blood pumping was all that could be heard. The moon's rays fell down upon the ground, lighting it without need for a torch. Even the wind had ceased to create a silence so absolute that even insects dared not touch it. A set of silhouettes passed through the trees, jumping from limb to limb. They came down silently before a cave entrance. The third Hokage, dressed in all black and bearing his regal battle gear, stopped before the entrance. He peeked within, his hand up, commanding his Anbu escorts to hold. He slowly began to make his way a little deeper into the cave. As they did, the silence was filled with a faint yet distinct clang. No, more like a clink. The sound of small metal objects, tools, scalpels maybe being pressed together. As they made their way through the dank cave, they passed by dripping water, a stalactite forming from where the water had been running. Deeper in, they found something peculiar. A wooden door. Definitely not a naturally occurring phenomenon. This was man-made. Hiruzen stepped to the side and slowly breathed in and then back out. He raised a hand and an Anbu operative stepped before the door. With a flick of Hiruzen's wrist, the signal was given and the Anbu agent kicked the door in with all of the energy in his legs and quite a bit of chakra just to get the door off its hinges. This wasn't as hard as it seemed though, as the door was attached to a damp and corroded wall. The agents rushed in and Hiruzen would follow them. Within, they found Orochimaru working on an autopsy as they spoke. Who this man was that the devil surgeon had cut into was a mystery. Perhaps he was merely an Iburi clansman. Orochimaru had taken advantage of their fear and was taking test subjects to find out how this genetic jutsu they so feared having worked. So it's true, Hiruzen thought to himself. I didn't want to believe it, but it's true. In retrospect, the signs were always there. He always had this darkness about him. Hiruzen had seen it, but specifically chose to ignore it, thinking he could teach his student to care about others. To have a conscience. But it was clear to Hiruzen that he had failed. It's over, Orochimaru, he called out. The pale-faced shinobi turned around. Is it over, my dear master? The sheer pressure of his chakra, the sheer intimidation, it was enough to shatter the jars within the room, spilling fluids and dissected organs onto the ground. His killing intent was pure and powerful, the Anbu froze in fear. Even Hiruzen found himself unable to move, he could barely function. He bit on his finger and pressed it to the ground, forming the contract seals he had with Enma, king of the monkeys. Enma showed up and prepared to fight, but as the fight began, Orochimaru had already cut down 2 Anbu operatives, and Enma was laid on the ground, defeated. Orochimaru appeared by the door. Enma called out, "Hiruzen! Hiruzen! Kill him! Don't let him escape!" Hiruzen was frozen. Could he do it? Could he kill his own apprentice? He had raised him, taught him. Half of Orochimaru's life had been spent with Hiruzen. Where had he gone wrong? Where had his teachings failed? No, it wasn't Hiruzen's fault that Orochimaru had turned out this way. Orochimaru had always been a morbid child, obsessed with the concept of death and rebirth. After the death of his parents, Hiruzen had found the discarded skin of a white snake. He told Orochimaru that this was a good omen, an omen of rebirth. Orochimaru had obviously taken the concept too far. Hiruzen's only failure was that he had let this go on for so long. He hadn't stopped Orochimaru earlier, but right now was his chance to make up for that shortcoming. But could he really do it? Orochimaru slowly walked through the door, calmness in every step. He won't do it, he thought to himself. Hiruzen could never kill me, not even if he wanted to, and he doesn't even want to. And as he stepped past the frame, suddenly he found a blade protruding from his chest. His face bore shock and terror, confusion and sorrow. He hit his knees. He shakily went to grab the affected area as if he could simply will his wound to heal. The blade was ripped out. Orochimaru let out a gasp and a gurgle as he fell back. Hiruzen caught him, blood pouring from the wound. Orochimaru held the wound, gripping at it frantically. "What did you do? What did you do to me? You killed me! You killed me!" Hiruzen held him. "No, Orochimaru. You killed yourself." Orochimaru's face could not get any paler than it was, but if it could, you'd find a note of color draining from his face. "I just need more time. I wanted to find a way to live forever, to stop people from dying, to bring the dead back to life." Hiruzen just listened. At this moment, he saw Orochimaru as he truly was. That scared boy, alone, standing before his parents' grave. Hiruzen could remember that time well. "They died?" the tiny boy asked. Hiruzen stood there, tall and strong, his brown hair feathered back, his eyes possessing just enough lining around them to show the ferocity of a true warrior. But his heart could not be hidden. Perhaps that's why Hiruzen wore the war paint, to hide a fragile and caring heart that he could not let his enemy know was there, but also could not deny. "They have, Orochimaru." The boy stood there on the verge of tears. Why? Hiruzen swallowed his emotions to continue. "They served valiantly. They were killed in action." Orochimaru had been so innocent then. Will they wake up? Hiruzen shook his head. "Death is a parting of more than just people, a parting of the soul from the body." Orochimaru's eyes ran over from tears. "I don't want to say goodbye." Hiruzen's heart was shattering. Orochimaru continued. "Will I die too?" Hiruzen came down to his knees. "Everything dies, Orochimaru. It's a natural part of life that we can't deny. We can't stop it from claiming us. We can't stop it from claiming anyone." The child's face was twisted in fear and sorrow. "No, Mr. Hiruzen. I'm scared. I don't want to die." Hiruzen hugged the child. "I'm scared. Please. I don't want to die." Hiruzen was back in the present. The child he was hugging was now a grown man, but nothing had changed. He was still hugging him. Orochimaru was crying. "Please, master. Save me. I don't want to die." He held his apprentice close and let the tears he had fought so hard to hold back flow from his eyes. It's okay, Orochimaru. Everything dies. It's a natural part of life." He sniffed as he stroked his head. "Your mother and father, they're waiting for you on the other side. Go to them. A world without death, without fear or sorrow. Go there and wait for me." Once more there was silence. A silence so deep that if a pin dropped, one felt the sound from it might shatter a window. He pulled Orochimaru's head away from his chest. He looked down into the lightless eyes of his pupil. He fought the urge to cry out in sorrow. He raised his hand up to Orochimaru's face and closed his eyes. For so long, Orochimaru had lived in fear. The fear of death through killing intent. The fear that paralyzed everyone he looked into. That was the fear Orochimaru lived with all his life. A paralyzing phobia. a fear of death so strong that it clouded the senses. He had to desensitize himself to pain, suffering, and death, and thereby desensitize himself to morals, lest his heart be scarred by death once more. A monster so scared of darkness that it couldn't see beyond it. Was this a mercy? Or was this the worst thing Orochimaru had ever had done to him? Perhaps it was both. The child Hiruzen had raised like a son. The white snake, pure once more, shed its skin, its mortal coil, and moved on to a place Hiruzen had yet to go, and could never go until his time on Earth was accomplished. The service was short. Many would spit upon his grave. So many would wish to see him dragged through the streets for what he had done to so many in the village. Konoha's first serial killer. A man who killed to ensure death never happened again. Hiruzen would not let them disrespect him, and so he'd have his body cremated. He would take the remains to the river where he would step out with the urn. In the center of the gently flowing water, the only other people there to watch were Tsunade, Jiraiya, and the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze. Hiruzen opened the box and looked down at the ashes within. He closed his eyes for a moment of silence, not for the man Orochimaru had become, but for the child he once was. Tsunade remembered him fondly. She remembered how when her love had perished, how he had cried with her. Jiraiya remembered him as the egghead who was as impressive as the master himself. A boy whose ability to tell and understand jokes, like Jiraiya tended to make, was second to none. Minato hadn't known Orochimaru well beyond the few times he had met him when his own master, Jiraiya, would meet up with him. He knew Jiraiya always spoke kindly of him. Hiruzen would turn the urn upside down and pour the contents into the river to be swept off with the flow. "Drift away," he said solemnly. "Find the peace you couldn't have in life." Hiruzen would return to the shore where he'd be helped out by Jiraiya and Minato. Tsunade was looking away, her lip quivering as she fought the urge to cry. "Damn fool. Why'd you have to go and get yourself killed?" Hiruzen would dry off a little with the towel he was presented by Jiraiya, and the group of four would then make their way back to the village proper. It was once more silent, but this time the silence was like the world offering respect. Kushina met up with them. Her stomach was round. She was many months along. "How was it?" Minato smiled. "It was great." Jiraiya would speak. "Orochimaru always did love that river when we were younger. We used to play with Hiroko by that river, and when he didn't feel like playing ninja with us, he would read by it." Tsunade smiled. "I miss Hiroko. Poor boy was so sickly. He wanted to be a shinobi so badly. It's sad that he had to fall to darkness like that." Jiraiya nodded. "I think that was the last straw for Orochimaru. The point when he gave up and sought immortality." They walked back to the village calmly. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The day came that Kushina would give birth. Hiruzen watched as Biwako left. He trusted his wife immensely. She was wise, intelligent, beautiful. Well, the last thing had nothing to do with her job she was performing, and it was more of Hiruzen being a lovesick puppy for his boo. He trusted her, but as any husband might when their wife is delivering the baby of a nuclear weapon, he was nervous. She had told him just to go to bed, and that by the time he awoke, she would already be home with him, ready to tell him the story of how Minato fainted or something. Hiruzen would laugh, and indeed he did take her advice, but as the night dragged on, Hiruzen found himself tossing and turning, unable to truly get any shut-eye. It was too quiet. So he rose once more and returned to his study. Opening his drawer, he grabbed his pipe and some tobacco and stuffed it in, lighting it with a match. "Just one smoke. That'll help me sleep." He sat there and took puff after puff from his pipe, a gentle orange light escaping with every breath. The moonlight filtered in through the open window. It was cold out, but Hiruzen kept the window open to help the smoke escape. After all, if he didn't, Biwako would complain that the books would yellow from his bad habit. He took a deep breath, and as he did, the silence that always seemed to prelude his sorrow was suddenly interrupted by an ear-splitting roar. Hiruzen's eyes turned towards the village. In the distance, the silhouette of the Ninetales loomed on the horizon. "No." He stood and went to the village. "No!" He leaned out the window just to make sure he was seeing things right. He beat his pipe on the windowsill and moved back inside. He stepped out and into the hall where he called for his servants. "My battle gear! Get it ready! Hurry!" He knew what this meant, and his heart was fluttering in nervousness, his mind afire with panic, but he put his gear on and stepped out into the cold night air, just as the Ninetales was coming into the village. The people screamed in terror. The civilians fled from it while the shinobi ran toward it. Hiruzen began coordinating with village defenses. He found Danzo, who was issuing orders to Root. "Seal off the village. Keep those blasted Uchiha busy guarding the gate. We can't let a single one of them close to the Ninetales." Hiruzen stepped over. "What do you mean? They could be our only hope." Danzo looked back. "I don't know if you've noticed, but the Ninetales has the reflection of the Sharingan in its eyes, Hiruzen. That means someone has cast it under Genjutsu using that eye. I never trusted those blasted Uchiha, the remnants of Madara's will, and now they're striking back to complete what he started. Hiruzen shook his head. There's no proof beyond the Sharingan, and just because the Sharingan is present in the eye doesn't mean it's the Uchiha. I know them. I've fought with them. Many died in the war, and I know that their eyes were harvested, likely from enemy nations. Danzo pulled his sleeve over his prosthetic arm. Hiruzen spoke. I know many of the Uchiha. I trust them with my life. He looked to the shinobi nearby. Fugaku Uchiha, bring him and him alone to me. The shinobi nodded. Danzo looked at Hiruzen out of the corner of his eye. I do not appreciate my authority being undercut, Hiruzen. Hiruzen spoke. We're both members of the Konoha Council. Our actions are for the good of the village. If you distrust the Uchiha, then we'll keep them out of battle. But Fugaku must be allowed to fight with us. If you trust me, then trust Fugaku. I know he's worthy of it. Danzo scoffed. That's the thing. I don't trust you. Your penchant for trusting killers and traitors is second to none. I wouldn't doubt that Fugaku was the one who did this personally, with your luck, that is. Hiruzen sighed. We'll have time to discuss this later. But until such a time that Minato returns, I am in charge. I am the Hokage. See that it's done, Shimura. Danzo relented. Hiruzen rushed out to the battle just as Fugaku appeared. We need to stop the Ninetales. Your Sharingan will be key. Can you do it? Fugaku shrugged. It's not whether my Sharingan is powerful enough to control the Ninetales that is the question. The contract needs to be broken. Someone is controlling the Ninetales as we speak. Until that person is defeated, I doubt I can wrest control from them. Hiruzen nodded. Keep trying. I'm going to try and limit the damage. Fugaku nodded and got to a high perch. He activated his Mangekyo Sharingan and attempted to cast the Ninetales under Genjutsu. However, it wasn't working. Fugaku witnessed the devastation. Lord Third will never be able to stop this on his own. I need to get closer. He rushed in and joined the battle. Few people know that I possess this, but if there was ever a time to reveal, it's now. He would summon his Susanoo. A violet avatar possessing a Hanya mask rose from Fugaku's body, its pair of legs forming. The chakra construct began to close in on the Ninetales. It rushed forward and lunged at the beast's back like a defensive tackle with clear sight on the opposing quarterback. It pushes the Ninetales out of the village and presses him back further, gaining the Ninetales' full attention. As things continue this way, a constant back and forth begins between the tailed beast and the Uchiha clan's head. Eventually though, Fugaku notices that the reflection of the Sharingan had disappeared from the eyes of the Ninetales. Fugaku then casts his own Genjutsu over it, causing it to fall under its control. He commands it to sit, and it does so. It's not long after that Minato arrives. The Ninetales! I need it immediately! If I'm quick, I may save Kushina. Hiruzen nods. Take it, Minato. Minato would take the Ninetales back, where he would seal it quickly into Kushina's body, saving her life. Many lives in the village were saved that day. It was due to Hiruzen's decision to let the Uchiha continue to defend the village that did so. After this, however, Hiruzen would bring Fugaku into the circle of intelligence and explain to him why the Uchiha were mostly sidelined. Fugaku is actually quite understanding, and when the cleanup of the village begins, Danzo proposes to move the Uchiha. Fugaku refutes this, saying that they do not need to move, they will simply rebuild. Hiruzen understands and says that Fugaku should know his clan's capabilities the best. Danzo would snidely remark that he must not know them that well if the traitor controlling the Ninetales was able to easily go under the radar. Fugaku stands to refute this, but Minato calls the meeting back to order. He states that he agrees with Hiruzen's assessment and will allow Fugaku to make the final decision on both where his clan is based out of, as well as internal affairs for his clan's investigation, on the stipulation that the moment he discovers anything of note, he will pass it up to them. This sign of trust is well received by the Uchiha and results in a calming of tensions between the village and the clan. Yes, there is still some resentment and distrust, but Fugaku explains what he saw and what everyone else saw, and instead of growing angry that the village is distrusting, they begin to understand that things do point towards them, and that the village is offering them more trust than they probably deserve, and should as such begin investigating the matter immediately. Hiruzen mourns for his wife, however. As things calm back down, it's discovered that she had perished in the attack. Hiruzen had already guessed this much, but the confirmation was hard. Sometimes closure is a curse. Closure like this, about this, it ripped away what little hope he had left that she might return. However, this does allow him to begin moving on. Asuma is there with them to help him grieve, and eventually little Konohamaru is born, restoring the old Kage's faith in life. Given that he's not Hokage at the time, he spoils that child rotten. He has plenty of time to train him as well. Little Konohamaru has a fire in him, a desire to match up to his grandfather and surpass him. Resenting his name as he feels it robs him of identity, as he's named after the village, he hopes to make a name for himself, so that when they hear his name, they think of him and not the village or those who preceded him. Hiruzen is more than happy to help, and few people are more qualified than Hiruzen. Hiruzen, known in his time as the god of Shinobi and as the professor, is willing to explain every jutsu he knows to the child, being sure to let his lessons increase with Konohamaru's own potential. His dream of becoming Hokage one day is slowly looking more and more like a possibility. All the while, Naruto Namikaze, the son of Minato and Kushina, studies hard too under his own tutor, Ebisu. Hiruzen mostly spends his golden years training Konohamaru and working with Minato as a member of the council. He more than likely would send Konohamaru to train with Jiraiya, which is likely where Konohamaru and Naruto's relationship would truly hit the depths of near brotherhood. Their rivalry and desire to become Hokage would push them to greater heights as they grow stronger together, far stronger than most other kids their age, leading to them both graduating the academy early. Due to the survival of the Uchiha, Sasuke himself might need an extra boost in strength, as he eventually would be trained by Itachi. Itachi was always promising to teach Sasuke later, and eventually later has to come. So Sasuke eventually grows into a pretty elite shinobi too. Hoping to form a new legendary team, Hiruzen suggests putting Naruto, Sasuke, and Konohamaru on the same team together. As time flows on, Team 7 is placed under Kakashi's control under the request of Minato. At first though, the team fails to understand the quality of teamwork. Sasuke is a bit of a loner, and Naruto and Konohamaru's constant need to outdo the other and get one up stops them from truly grasping the concept. Kakashi can't just fail and deny them though, so he spends a lot of time, probably more than he'd like, trying to remind the kids why teamwork is important. This is hard to translate to Naruto and Konohamaru, both of whom are confident in their own abilities. Sasuke picks it up quickly though. Kakashi relents and supposes that Konohamaru and Naruto are close and will ultimately choose one another should the time come. And eventually that time does come. It comes in the form of the Land of Waves mission, in which the team would be attacked twice on their way to the village of Tezuna's origin. Of course, due to Team 7's training, they easily surpass the Demon Brothers. Zabuza is a bit more to handle, but they aren't stupid, and together they find a way to defeat him. After all, for them, victory would be counted as merely getting his hand off the water prison. It's actually here that Naruto, Sasuke, and Konohamaru's lessons on teamwork begin to pay off. The moment the three of them swallow their pride, they are capable of grand things. They're rewarded with their mentor's freedom. However, personally, their reactions to the likes of Inari would be really bad. Inari is a poor boy who lost his father figure. Kaiza was a strong man with great morals and conviction to do what was right. Inari idolized him, but when Gato killed Kaiza for possessing the same qualities that Kaiza was trying to instill into Inari, the boy shut off his heart, believing that heroes were a lie. The concept of sacrifice had not translated, and he began to take on a more pessimistic view of the world, that the nice guy always finished last, and that cheating villains always had control and would never not have control. His statements that there are no heroes angers not only Naruto, son of the 4th Hokage, but it angers Konohamaru, grandson of the 3rd. These two snap at Inari for his foolishness and state that a sniveling brat like him could never have what it takes to be a hero because he's too scared. This, of course, drives the little fella to tears, who runs off crying. However, Sasuke resents this. He resents the way that Naruto and Konohamaru reacted. He understands that this was a slight to theirs and their father's honor, but he doesn't understand how they can't see this for what it truly is. Sasuke possesses the Sharingan, and it allows him to see the world in a different light. This was taught to him by his brother, Itachi, who taught him not to look on someone's outer casing, but upon their heart. As such, Sasuke becomes more sensitive to the emotions of others, and is by far the most empathetic of the three. Sasuke would venture up to the child's room to talk with him. He'd sit beside him on the bed. The boy hid his face to keep from the shame of his tears. Sasuke removes his bucket hat and sits it on the bed. "Look up at me, Inari." Inari shook his head. Sasuke continued. "Look up at me." Inari relented and looked up to show his tear-stained face. Sasuke smiled with his kindest smile. "As shinobi, we're taught to never show our enemies our tears, but the same is not true for allies. Our team reminds us we're human. You see, when you live the life of a shinobi, you become desensitized to the horrors of war. So many shinobi fear that they've lost their humanity, but some things never change. Their ability to shed these beautiful tears are a sign of humanity. Humans live, love, fail, and die. But my big brother tells me that the greatest thing that a human can do is love. That is what a hero is. Someone who loves and serves others no matter the risk or consequences. Sometimes the bad guys beat us up, and sometimes they hurt us and knock us down. Sometimes they even win. And if they do, Well, we can't stop that. But just so long as we save those close to us, just so long as we save the faces of those who need help, even if we die, it's worth it. Because in the end, a hero sometimes has to die, but that doesn't mean he's lost forever. The spirit of that hero lives on in every person he's saved. The conviction to do right, to use our lives for more than just ourselves, to be altruistic. Kindness is a greater power than any chakra well or ninjutsu. It pushes us forward, and when we're here on our knees, it helps us to stand. And when we die, it's passed on to everyone we touched in our lives. The spirit of a hero is sleeping with you right now, and it's okay. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be angry and be afraid. After all, those traits are purely human. But the decision to live life anyway, to care and do good, even when we don't want to, that's what makes a hero. Heroes are not those who win or lose the game. Heroes are those who decide to play the game at all. He pat the child's head, and Inari hugs onto Sasuke. Why did Daddy have to die? Why did he have to leave me alone? I loved him. Why did Gato take him away? Sasuke could not answer. After all, sometimes evil people existed in the world. These were the villains he spoke of. Your father was a man of great character. That character is something that greedy Gato could never buy, and that scared him. He wanted to destroy it, but we can't let it die. Kaiza was a seed of goodness. If we let it sprout, even Gato can't destroy it, and we can defeat him. For a while longer, he comforted Inari. All the while, Kakashi stood outside and listened. The day after, they were set to protect the bridge from Gato and his men. Sasuke was forced to show his conviction and belief behind these words when he took a near-fatal wound from Haku. However, with the conjunction of Naruto and Konohamaru's efforts, they defeated Haku and Sasuke was saved. Kakashi would go on to defeat Zabuza too, when it was proven that Sasuke's words had reached Inari. Inari led the villagers into battle against Gato and drove him and his thugs off, freeing their land from the vile gangster. Kakashi was impressed with his team, and as they reached home, and word of the Chunin exams came around, he would put them up to join the exams. Hiruzen was so proud of Konohamaru. His pride in his grandson was beyond measure. He had completed a mission that would be a tall order for even an experienced Chunin, and had thus earned his chance to join the exams. Hiruzen was the one that Minato had told to help create the tests. So he set the tests up in such a way that it would test their brains, brawn, and ingenuity. This is why he chose a written test. But beyond that, he wanted it to be a test of character, and so he chose Ibiki Marino to be the proctor, as there was scarcely found a man more fitting for the term ninja than he. Hiruzen would watch the exams with Minato and the 4th Kazekage, Rasa. Now, unbeknownst to them, Rasa was planning his own Konoha crush. You see, even though Orochimaru is not here, that doesn't mean the Konoha crush won't happen. The Hidden Sand is a powerful shinobi village, but they're in financial trouble. Everyone prefers Konoha's shinobi, and thus when missions are called for, they go straight to Konoha, which is starving out Suna. The only way Rasa believes they can survive is to destroy Konoha, and he plans to use the Chunin exams to do so. When the final rounds of the Chunin exams exhibition matches rolled around, Rasa would give Gaara the word to unleash Shukaku, and would himself attack the Hokages, attempting to murder them, cutting the head off the snake, as it were. However, he had underestimated Minato, who would kill him personally. And as for Gaara, he's subdued and captured by the Uchiha, who use their Sharingan to control the tailed beast. Gaara would be locked tightly under Konoha's protection for quite a time. Due to Suna's failed attempt, their village's shinobi name is muddied further, and the fame of Konoha is boasted. This causes Sunagakure to lose even more business, which slowly pulls them under, ending Suna as a village entirely. Peace reigns for a time, and Team 7 continues to train. Eventually, all three train under Jiraiya, as it seems unfair to not include Sasuke, who is obviously the heart of their group. They trust Sasuke to further pull the team together, and so he's also welcomed to Mount Myoboku to train under the Toad Sages. Team 7's power begins to surpass all previously known teams. However, this is not where their story ends. The Akatsuki attempt to get the tailed beast together, and to that end, Pain and his 6 paths are sent to the village. However, they stand no chance against Konoha as it stands, due to the power of not only Naruto, but Sasuke and Konohamaru, as well as Itachi, Shisui, Fugaku, Minato, and the entirety of the Uchiha and Hyuga clans, plus everyone else in the village. This is enough to turn Pain back, and so Konoha would defeat Pain and Konin and take his body for themselves. Without the Rinnegan or the tailed beasts, the Akatsuki's plans hit a dead stop. You know what would be hilarious? Let's say Sasuke awakens his Rinnegan. There are still 2 other Rinnegan left over, so what if they're given to Naruto and Konohamaru? Team 7 becomes busted as hell. Sage Mode Rinnegan users who have the power of the Kage behind them. Teneri doesn't stand a chance against that, nor does Momoshiki. Ishiki likely stands no chance. To be frank with you, the Akatsuki stand no chance should they ever try to retake the Rinnegan. Yes, there are 3 targets, but their most hacked warrior is Obito due to his ability to spam Kamui, and even then, I highly doubt he can stand against Naruto, Sasuke, and Konohamaru. I mean, let's just assume that Naruto and Konohamaru gain the ability to use Madara's limbo technique. We know Pain didn't use it, but this doesn't mean that it can't be used. Imagine if Konohamaru and Naruto could. Even Obito couldn't stop that, as he only uses Kamui on one part of his body at a time. So, back to our story, what I see happening is that Minato eventually steps down and the time to choose a new Kage comes. Konohamaru is sure that it's him, and Naruto is certain that it would be himself, but to both of their surprise, it is Sasuke who's chosen. Sasuke was the one who had shown the true will of fire. He was as kind as he was strong, and his intelligence was second to none. His natural possession of a Rinnegan, as opposed to Naruto and Konohamaru's pilfering of them from Nagato, give him an edge further as the next sage of 6 paths. This makes his family and the Uchiha as a whole proud. For the first time in history, there's an Uchiha Hokage. This further unifies the bonds between the Uchiha and Konoha. Finally, Ashura and Indra Otsutsuki have found peace with each other. I sort of feel like this is what would have happened had Hiruzen made the proper choices. You see, Hiruzen's inability to actually change anything is what would eventually lead to the events of the series. Hiruzen couldn't protect the Uchiha, which led to Sasuke's fall to darkness. If Hiruzen had fought to allow the Uchiha to fight, it's likely Minato wouldn't have died. Had Hiruzen chosen to kill Orochimaru, there would have been no Konoha crush, nor would there have been anyone to push Sasuke to turn to the dark side. If none of these things had happened, they would have been able to possess enough power to likely stop the Akatsuki's rise to power, let alone defeat them in the 4th Shinobi World War. The survival of the Uchiha is integral because, like it or not, they're some of the best warriors in the entirety of Konoha, specifically because of their Sharingan. But that is just my 2 cents. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below.
Did you enjoy our video? Well, then be sure to check out these other great videos from the Amagi, and make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.